Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is the third installment of the trilogy, not the end of the whole series though, because they already announced that 4 will be coming our way around spring of 2027, so this is the end of this first trilogy, probably many more to come, mayhaps. Ben Schwartz says he would more or less like this to keep going forever, so, you know, we'll get as many as we pay for, pretty much. And this movie is introducing Shadow the Hedgehog into the story. He is awoken from a 50-year captivity on a gun prison island. He wants revenge now against that organization Gun, so they want Sonic and his friends Knuckles and Tails to help them out, but they might be a lot outmatched by him. On the other side of that coin, you have Dr. Robotnik, played once again by Jim Carrey, who is still alive after the events of 2, and he may also have a bit to play in the overall scheme of everything going on. When the first Sonic movie came out, you know, I did a review of it. I wasn't really too big on it back then. I was kind of like, you know, it's a better design that they have here, but overall I just think the movie isn't up to par. I saw it again like a week or two later with some friends, and you know, I think I appreciated the experience a little bit more because I was with them and they all enjoyed it, but it still wasn't really clicking with me. By the time I rewatched the movie before Sonic 2, all of a sudden it worked for me. I don't know, I can't really explain it. I was just won over by the charms of that film, with what Jeff Fowler was able to do behind the camera, with the chemistry created between the character Tom, played by James Marsden, and Sonic, voiced wonderfully by Ben Schwartz, and of course, you know, Jim Carrey really just nailing every single scene that he's in. I was just won over by the charm of that movie, and I rewatched it again recently, and I thought, you know, it was even better a fourth time around. So it's a movie that's been growing on me. And then you have Sonic the Hedgehog 2, where when I saw that in theaters, I thought, yeah, this is a better movie. It's the same creative team, the same writers and director Jeff Fowler, and it's the same with this third movie as well, and it just seemed like with the trajectory they were going theatrically, you know, that they were just getting better and better, so 3 should have no problem being the best one. We won't talk about the Knuckles show. It's pointless. It's not referenced at all in this movie. I don't know why they made it, other than they can say they have a Knuckles spin-off show. You know how Marvel and Star Wars and DC have all these other spin-off stuff on streaming, so they wanted their own version of that. It was bad. But that aside, I have been enjoying the trajectory of this series. I think the creative team still being involved is really great, and yes, they have created another fun experience with Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I thought that once again, Jeff Fowler did a really great job behind the camera. It is a very well-made movie with some fantastic looking visual effects. You know, we've seen some of these characters before, but something about their looks, it really does feel like they took the time to like kind of update them with each film. Now that, you know, we've gotten to see them before, now let's see if we can make them a little bit better. I really do think they are putting in that much work there, and it's really well appreciated, obviously. The action sequences are so much fun. They're so creative to watch as well. The great blend of the fantastic visual effects obviously helps. Another great score from Tom Holkenborg to back it up. You know, it doesn't ever feel like I am watching something lesser, you know, than what it should be, because I know, you know, these are movies that are made, you know, with kids in mind first, kind of aimed towards then. Obviously, there are a lot of adult Sonic the video game fans out there, but first and foremost, it's kids first, and I always feel like they put in a lot more work to, you know, make them better than just your average, like, cash grab. Like, if Illumination was behind this, and, you know, yeah, they made a decent Mario movie, but as far as, like, their track record with making sequels to their popular films, and it always just seems like, you know, the less and less care goes into those. It always seems like this team really does care about these movies, and I really appreciate that, because you can have the action, you can have the great looking visual effects and all the other like technical things, you know, that you can find in these blockbusters nowadays, and you can also even have like some really good humor, which this movie does have. Obviously, a lot of people here are coming to play. These movies also kind of serve as an excuse to do like these absurd like comedy movie gags, which is like, you know, if you have the avenue to do it, you know, take it, you know? But they also do get you really hooked with a pretty, like, solid emotional hook with the Shadow character. Obviously, they're adapting from games, and some people might be familiar with versions of that story. I'm not sure how many times they've done, like, a Shadow the Hedgehog backstory, traumatic backstory, whatever, and I know there might be some differences when it came to putting him in this film. And I'm not gonna act like I was, like, crying my eyes out or anything in this movie. I wasn't, but as far as, like, adding some emotional depth to that character, you know, they do a really great job with that, and handling, you know, a topic that can be tough for some people, you know, that being grief and the rage that can potentially, you know, fill your soul with that when you're looking for someone to blame. Who's to blame for this, you know? And I thought Keanu Reeves, as the voice of Shadow the Hedgehog, is really great. Obviously, he can sell, like, tough, like, you know, dark, emo kind of sounding voice, but he also does sell you on a lot of, like, pain and sadness in certain scenes with him playing Shadow, and I just thought overall it was a really great pairing. You know, they did a really good job bringing this version of Shadow to life and pairing him up with a voice actor, you know, that really kind of, he stated in interviews that he wanted to get it right. He did some research, and it definitely does show as far as like his performance. I thought he did a really good job. And if we're talking about acting, yes, Jim Carrey doing double billing, playing Ivo and Gerald Robotnik in this, outstanding. You know what I mean? Like, he's been great in these other two movies, and now that he's doing like two characters, you have like his typical Eggman character, but then older Eggman, not the same Eggman character, it's, you know, grandpa, grandson situation, but just playing like an older, slightly more like refined version of that character, I thought was really funny. Like, there's just so many great points where he's having great chemistry with himself, and I think at certain points I was trying to see where I could like spot any seams as far as like bringing, you know, both Jim Carreys together. Like, okay, which is the green screen shot, you know, where have they replaced an actor with the CGI face of Jim Carrey, like, where have they done it? And I couldn't really spot anything. Like, I thought it was a pretty seamless job altogether, very technically impressive on that front, and it's just very funny to see them go head to head comedically, which they do quite extensively, to some lengths that I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing sometimes, just because it just gets so silly, you know, and these movies have had silly humor, but just, for whatever reason, it always surprises me just what they're allowed to get away with. He's just so much fun. Of course, Ben Schwartz is still killing it as Sonic. I'm glad that he is Sonic. He has a perfect energy for him. He's got a great voice for him, and once again, he plays that character very well. He's got a lot of great funny lines, but, you know, yeah, he does have an arc to go through. He has to learn some lessons, and with Ben Schwartz, an underrated skill that he has as a voice actor, as far as like playing Sonic, is that he can hit those kind of emotional low points, and it's pretty convincing and, you know, pretty consistent with the character of Sonic. Idris Elba as Knuckles is pretty much gone full Drax at this point. With the second movie, it was kind of like, yeah, he's kind of Drax, but you got this other stuff going on. And in this one, it's kind of full-on Drax, which, you know, I'm fine with if you can do it well, and I think they did do it well for the most part, and Idris Elba's fun. Tails, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, is still really fantastic. I'm glad that they didn't, I don't know if I mentioned this in my review for 2, I'm glad that they didn't get, like, a celebrity to come in and try to do Tails, because Colleen O'Shaughnessy kind of has, like, the perfect voice. You know, why would you get somebody else, you know? And I'm glad, you know, that this is our trio, you know, kind of leading the pack with this movie. There's not as many human kind of subplots in this movie. Like, if you thought 2 was putting James Marsden and Tika Sumpter in a bit more of a backseat, this one a little bit more so, I would say. Not that, you know, that's bad or like good. I fucking hate those characters. I'm totally fine with those characters, but I think we are kind of at a point where it's like, yeah, if you don't really have a lot going on, you know, with them, you don't necessarily need them the whole time, and I think they found a good balance. You know, we're kind of in a point now where we might not even need to see them ever again. You know, that might just be the trajectory of where that's headed. But either way, like, I still thought they were utilized pretty well in this. I only bring that up just so I can say I'm glad that they are taking a bit more of a chance of having the CG characters kind of being the lead, and giving Agent Stone a lot more time. I fucking love Lee Majdoub. Like, ever since, like, the first movie when he, you know, got his little moments with Jim Carrey, it was like, yeah, this is good. You know, I'm glad that they gave, like, his, like, lackey, you know, like, a bit more personality comedically. When they brought him back for 2, I was excited for that. And in this one, you know, it's his best performance yet as this character. I think this was just a really well done job from him. And I was kind of surprisingly touched by what they tried to add, you know, to, you know, add more layers to that character and the relationship with him and Robotnik. It's very sweet, actually, in a funny, like, a kind of sincere way. It perfectly balances goofy, like, absurd comedy. This is an absurd comedy, but they also do have, like, this sincere kind of feel with those characters. Just, they have their own special thing going, and that's cool. I do have some issues with this movie, though. I don't think every single joke works. I mean, that's kind of the nature of, like, a lot of comedies, at least for me, is that, you know, if you're, you know, going at it in a lot of ways, you know, not everything is going to stick. Totally normal. I do think there are some technical things, like a couple, like, shots of, like, green screen where I was like, it doesn't, like, for everything else that looks so good, you have a shot like this where it could look better. But it's not even all just that. I mean, sometimes there's just a way they've, like, staged a scene where I'm kind of like, how does this flow into that? Or more specifically, without going into spoilers, there's a moment where I'm like, I'm not really feeling the emotional impact because the way they've shot this scene is a bit, it kind of lacks, kind of just like, let's just do it quick and move on. And I think this one, more so than the other 2, has a bit of a dialogue problem, as far as there's a lot of stuff said that is very obvious, to the point where it's like, dude, really? Like, I was kind of like cocking my head, like, is that really the pass we're gonna go with as far as, the sequence here with the dialogue? Not, and it's not a thing like throughout where like every single line I'm like, oh my god, it's just a couple key select points where I'm like, you probably could have dialed that back a bit. You could have probably approached this scene a little differently. I know this movie was shot, or it started production a little bit after the strikes. I don't know how they did it, but I'm pretty sure they started production around that time. And I bring that up not just, to mention the dialogue that I just mentioned before, but to mention these other storytelling things that happen. I do not think this is, like, narratively as tight as the other two movies, and those I don't think those are like flawless masterpieces. I think they have a share of issues as well, but I feel like this one there's a bit of like, okay, you guys are getting really lucky with all the good stuff that's going on here, that this other stuff that feels a little undercooked, rushed, underdeveloped, the fact that this isn't bothering me more, that's a testament to how good some of this other stuff is. For example, as far as they do a good job with Shadow and having Keanu Reeves give a good performance, give you some fill in the blank stuff as far as backstory and the pain and sadness he's going through. But there is an aspect to his backstory that I thought they would push harder on as far as like, tying it in thematically. Some other reveal that would, uncover a new layer for Shadow as far as like his personal journey. And instead, it never really happened. And it definitely made me feel like, okay, I feel like I got the gist, but I still feel like I'm missing something as far as like, a bigger a bigger thing to be revealed that they never quite did. It definitely does feel like, well, if you played the games, we don't have to do all of that over again, That's kind of the feel I got. The other thing is that Gunn, the like government agency that's been in the other two movies, they're present again in this one, obviously. And there's a bit of a subplot of like mistrust between our heroes and them that I never quite bought. And it does not help that we have a new, like, director, a character. I'm forgetting her last name, but it is Kristen Ritter, who I love. I love so much as an actress. She is so talented. When I heard she was in this, I was kind of excited to see what she could do. And I was a little disappointed that her character just... It seems a little confused as far as like what they wanted to do. It could be a thing where they have sequels planned. This character will become a bigger thing later on. But as far as her placement in this, it's not great. A character that like at one point says like, I knew we couldn't trust them, but it's kind of built off of nothing. Like this is the first time we're meeting this character and we just met her like about a minute ago and she didn't really do much in the scene. So it's like they have this great actress, and if you're going to have her, you should give her something really great to work with. And it just seems like everyone else has good stuff, and she has a comedic scene where she's like kind of scooting on the ground, and Jim Carrey's doing the same thing too, so it's like, that's kind of funny, but as far as like the character and the motivation, I was a bit confused, especially when you tie into the Gun thing, because there is a point of time where, yeah, they built up, we can't trust them. I'm not trusting them until we know more of what's going on. They have to sneak into Gun headquarters without them knowing, and it's a kind of a thing similar to the Robotnik Shadow kind of flashback stuff, is that there is a point in time where I feel like I get the gist of what they were trying to do, but it still feels like there's a bigger thing that they have not shown or shot or written at all that probably would have, made this, impact a lot more. Even at the end of the film, no spoilers, but just at the end of the film, they don't really resolve anything. Like at one point near the end of the second act, they're just kind of out. And that's kind of what I mean, is that, like, narratively, as far as, like, the screenwriting this time around, and it's, in the second act, really, I think. If I was to pinpoint an exact kind of place, mostly kind of like in the second act, where it just seems like it's a little more loose. It kind of does have like the writing feel of like, we strung this together as fast as we could, before, we got shut down for strikes. That's why I brought it up earlier. That's just kind of how it feels. But like I said, this movie has a lot of great elements. It's once again another fun, entertaining film with great action sequences, great visual effects, some good practical like set design, costume design stuff, great comedic acting, and also, a good emotional hook, which I think these past two Sonic movies have also done a pretty solid job with as far as inserting something that is, not like, bawling your eyes out sad or anything, but just, something to warm you a little bit, give you the feels, even just a little bit. I do wish that this was like, my favorite Sonic movie. I would say that the order goes Sonic 2, and then even the first movie, and then this one. Like I said, just those things narratively that I feel like they fumbled on really kind of got to me, and I feel like the other movies did not have like the same kind of levels of like kind of like borderline sloppy rushed storytelling. I'm gonna give Sonic the Hedgehog 3 a B-. Overall, though, it is better than Knuckles, Chronicles, the TV show, which you never have to watch. Don't do it. This is better. The trilogy overall is, overall pretty consistent as far as, being of good quality and having great comedic moments. They announced that they were doing 4, like I mentioned before. I can't wait to see what they do. Am I crossing my fingers hoping that, they are able to maintain their consistent good quality and that they don't, go off the rails? Of course, especially with what I mentioned here as far as, my flaws. But that being said, if it's the same team, then I'm open to see what they do, because it seems like they love working together, they love working on this. I'm open to seeing more. But if you've seen Sonic the Hedgehog 3, leave your thoughts in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.